The private jet descended smoothly onto the secluded runway, flanked by black SUVs, waiting like loyal sentinels. From the aircraft emerged a tall, commanding figure. His name was Richard Caswell, a businessman to the world, but to those who truly knew him, he was something much darker. His bodyguards moved in perfect formation as they escorted him across the hangar, toward his estate. Moments later, Richard stepped into his sprawling mansion. The tension of his day seemed to melt as he stripped down and changed into swimwear. With his usual arrogance, he dove into his private Olympic-sized pool, the water shimmering under the evening lights. Each stroke he took was powerful, deliberate, until he noticed something glinting at the bottom. His prized Swiss watch had slipped from his wrist. Cursing under his breath, Richard dove deep to retrieve it. But before he could grasp the watch, hands far stronger than his own clamped around him. Panic exploded and hissed as he struggled, kicking and thrashing. But the grip was unrelenting. The world above blurred into watery silence. Within seconds, the mighty Richard Caswell was nothing more than another corpse, sinking to the pool floor. The assassin released his prey only when Richard stopped moving. Risen silently to the surface, the man known only as Arthur Bishop slipped away amidst the chaos that erupted. Guards shouted, alarms blared, but Bishop was already gone. His escape route carefully plotted. With calm precision, he vaulted over the mansion's outer wall and disappeared into the river below, letting the current carry him into the night. Bishop's safe house was a study in minimalism, metal, stone, and shadows. That night, as he cleaned his sweepings, the silence was broken by a knock. An old, familiar voice followed. "Arthur, it's me." It was Harry McKenna, part mentor, part father figure to Bishop. Harry had aged, but his eyes still carried the wisdom and weight of their shared past. They shared whiskey, speaking in low tones of old jobs and darker times. Before parting ways, Harry mentioned his son, Steve, a hothead with not erection. Bishop merely smirked, unconvinced that the boy could ever walk the path of a mechanic. Alone again, Bishop sat at his desk, scrolling through his new contract. His blood froze. The target was Harry McKenna. At first, he refused to believe it. A mistake, he thought. He called his employer, demanded confirmation. But the voice on the other end was cold, final. "The contract is real, Arthur. Harry sold us out. If you want proof, speak to Dean in Johannesburg." Dean, calculating bureaucrat of Thunderworld, confirmed it face to face. A mission went south in South Africa. Only 2 men knew of its details. Me and Harry. He took money to sell your men out. Arthur Bishop's code was unshakable. The contract stood, but when Heffenly stood in front of Harry, he hesitated longer than he ever had before pulling a trigger. The shot echoed through the house, staged to look like an accident. Rain drizzled softly over the cemetery as the coffin was lowered. A handful of mourners gathered, their umbrellas forming a black canopy against the gray sky. Arthur Bishop stood at a distance, his face unreadable. Harry McKenna's death weighed heavier in him than any other contract he had ever completed. This was not just a job, it was betrayal, dressed as duty. Through the mist, Bishop noticed a young man lingering by the grave. Sharp eyes, tense posture, jaw clenched in rage. Steve McKenna, Harry's son. Steve lit a cigarette, exhaling smoke like it was venom. "I know what happened," he muttered with it, looking at Bishop. "They think it was an accident. I don't buy it. Somebody going to pay." Bishop said nothing. He simply watched, letting the boy vent his fury. But when Steve threatened to go out into the night, find a random criminal, and kill him for revenge, Bishop's instincts flared. He tailed the kid silently. That night, Steve cornered a car thief in an alley, pistol shaking in his unsteady grip. Bishop intervened just as Steve was about to pull the trigger. He disarmed him with ease, pinning him against the wall. "You don't even know what you're doing," Bishop growled. "I don't care," Steve spat back. "He has to pay." Bishop saw it then, raw anger, recklessness, but beneath it, potential. Dangerous potential, something Bishop could mold. Against his better judgment, Head decided the boy would be trained. Steve arrived at Bishop's home uninvited, restless, and hungry for direction. Bishop tried to dismiss him, but Theakid's persistence was iron. Eventually, he gave in. Training began harshly. Bishop taught them discipline, weapon handling, silent kills, escape tactics. Steve failed repeatedly, often bruised and bloodied, but his stubborn fire never dimmed. Being a mechanic isn't about rage, Bishop explained one night, cleaning his pistol. It's about precision, cold calculation. Rage gets you killed. Steve scoffed. Maybe I'm not like you. No, Bishop replied with a hard stare. You're worse. And that's exactly why you need me. Over time, the lessons stuck. Steve became sharper, faster, more efficient. For the first time since Harry's death, Bishop felt something, almost like redemption, guiding Thiessen of the man he had betrayed. But shadows never stay buried. One night, as Steve waited at Bishop's house, masked intruders stormed in, armed mercenaries looking for Bishop. They seized Steve, using him as bait. When Bishop's phone rang, he instantly knew something was wrong. Steve's voice trembled on the other end, but Bishop's mind was already racing. Are you sitting on the couch? Bishop asked casually. Yeah, Steve answered, confusion in his voice. Good. In the left cushion, there's a pistol. Take it, then put pressure on the floorboard under your foot. Do it now. The trap Bishop had built into Highsound House sprung to life. Hidden mechanism snapped, killing two of the mercenary instantly. Steve grabbed the pistol and took out the others with clumsy but effective shots. By the time Bishop arrived, the floor was littered with bodies, and Steve stood trembling, but alive. You planned this? Steve gasped. I planned for everything, Bishop said flatly, holstering his gun. For weeks, Steve trained harder under Bishop's watchful eye. His skills sharpened, his confidence grew, but so did his curiosity. Bishop's house was more than Asif House, it was a fortress, filled with secrets. One night, when Bishop was away on an errand, Steve wandered into the garage. His eyes fell on a locked steel trunk tucked behind dusty shelves. He remembered Bishop's warning, never touch that box, ever. Temptation gnawed at him. With a crowbar and stubborn will, Steve pried it open. Inside, files and photographs spilled out. Old missions, old targets, and then the photograph. That stopped his breath cold. It was his father, Harry McKenna, dead, bullet hole visible. The dossier next to it was stamped with one word, eliminated. Steve's hands shook, rage boiling inside him. He realized the truth. His father hadn't died by chance. He had been executed. And Arthur Bishop, the man who had taken him under his wing, was the executioner. The betrayal cut deep. The mentor he had begun to trust, maybe even admire, was the same man who had stolen his father. From that moment on, Steve's purpose shifted. Training wasn't about becoming like Bishop anymore. It was about surpassing him, killing him. Steve didn't confront Bishop immediately. No, he was smarter than that. He masked his anger behind a facade of loyalty, all while setting traps. The first attempt came days later, a staged ambush on the road. Steve lured Bishop out with a fabricated lead, then tipped off mercenaries. But Bishop's instincts were sharper than a wolf's. He smelled the betrayal before the first bullet flew, turning the trip into a bloodbath, leaving Steve's hired guns as corpses on the asphalt. The second attempt was at home. Steveridged the wiring, setting up a deadly electrocution trap. But Bishop noticed the faintest irregularity in the fuse box. He reset the circuit with a smirk, detonating the trap prematurely while Steve wasn't there. Finally, Bishop confronted him, not with violence, but with truth. I know what you found, Bishop said, voice low but steady. And I won't lie to you, Steve. Yes, I killed your father, but he sold us out. He betrayed the only code we lived by. If I hadn't done it, someone else would have. I'm sorry. For a flicker of a moment, Steve seemed to soften. His eyes dropped, his fists loosened. Maybe I believe you. But inside, the plan was still alive. Steve pretended to forgive. Pretendetto move on. They drank together, even laughed. But betrayal is a poison that never leaves. One morning, Steve announced his decision. I need to go to Mexico. Start over. Leave this all behind. Bishop studied him carefully, but nodded. Do what you must. That same day, Steve planted his masterpiece. A bomb under Bishop's car. A gift, wrapped in deceit. Later, Bishop stopped at a gas station. As he stepped from the car, something caught his eye.